Let's do this. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can get wherever you download your apps. And of course, 1430 AM as well if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. So yesterday was cut day. The Colts cutting players, and every team had to do it. The cut time, or the final time to make cuts yesterday, was at 4:00 Eastern. We're going to have Zach Hicks join the show here in an hour, and he's going to kind of talk about the guys down at the bottom of the roster and why the Colts made some of the decisions that they did. Now, cut day, it's a great day for certain Colts fans, the ones who both know and understand Chris Ballard's struggles as a general manager. It's a great day because there's just all this data that comes out. And it's like, oh, look at all these guys who got cut that Chris Ballard used like a first, second, or third round pick on. And one of those guys is Jelani Woods. I wouldn't call it an outcry, but there's this theme that I've seen from the Colts and from Colts fans all off season. And I just want to point it out because it kind of bothers me a little bit. With Anthony Richardson, the saying was he needs reps, right, in order to become a better quarterback and a better player. He needs reps means that the player isn't good. Because if the player was good, then we just say, oh, that guy's a good player. He should probably play. Not he needs reps. Saying that a guy needs reps is very simply admitting that they're not very good at whatever it is that they are doing. He has potential means that they're talented, but for one reason or another, they can't stay on the field. Another way of saying he has potential is, oh, I'm really excited about this player. Or, man, he's really talented. And I just want to know, like, why do Colts fans and Colts media love injury-prone players with potential? Jelani Woods got cut. Not surprising. He should have been cut. When you're playing late in the fourth quarter of a preseason game, just know that your time is almost up with whatever team you're playing with. Jelani Woods got cut. He hasn't logged a stat since 2022. I don't think he's played in a game since 2022. In that year, his rookie year, he wasn't very good. 25 receptions, 312 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 15 games. He only started 2 of those games. He couldn't beat out Kylan Granson or Mo Alley-Cox when he was healthy. Definitely not going to beat out Mo Alley-Cox now with the slew of injuries that Jelani Woods has gone through. And do you know why people say that Jelani Woods has so much potential? Because we haven't seen him play. Like, you can't have anything more than potential when you've only played 334 snaps since 2022 when you got drafted. So 3 years ago. It's hard to have anything more than potential when you play so little. It's the same thing with Juju Brents, who was a second-round pick, and Anthony Richardson, who was the 4th overall pick. After Juju Brents got released, I saw a lot of the same comments about how talented he is and about how he's tall and he's long and how he projects, to maybe be really good at some point. And he's got all this potential. But who cares about potential? Are you noticing something? When someone has potential, it means they're young and they're talented, but they can't stay on the field for one reason or another. Jelani Woods, 3rd round pick. Juju Brents, 2nd round pick. Anthony Richardson, 1st round pick, 4th overall. All of them. So much potential. Translation, they can't or couldn't stay healthy. That's, once again, the number 4 overall pick that the Colts have just kind of punted on at this point. Could they keep him around? Could they allow him to compete for the starting job next year? Is there a world in which Daniel Jones gets hurt? Let's say, he sprains his ankle. He's out for 3 weeks, and Anthony Richardson plays really well over those 3 weeks to a point where the Colts just kind of continue to go with him and not go back to Daniel Jones. That could absolutely happen. But this is the second time he's been benched in the last 2 years. Kind of feels like the Colts are done with that guy. They're like, hey, you know what our goal is this year? To win. Forget developing a young quarterback. Our goal this season is to win football games. And sorry, Anthony, but all that potential doesn't lead to wins. It leads to Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard getting fired. Second round pick, Juju Brents. And part of why they cut him, to be fair to him, is he's not really a scheme fit, right? He's not blazing fast. He was a Gus Bradley guy. Like, hey, tall, long, can play zone coverage and do those things. Tall, long, and can play zone coverage. Sounds more like a safety than a corner, but hey, what do I know? He's gone. And then, we got big old 6'7", kind of fast Jelani Woods. And look, when you're cutting and releasing and benching a 4th overall pick before he signed a second contract, a second-round pick who's barely played, and a third-round pick who never signed a second contract, that is not a good look for Chris Ballard. I mean, it is absolutely brutal. Brandon Wallace, you're so right. If you want to head over to YouTube and subscribe, you can hop in the chat and be part of the conversation. And Brandon Wall saying that, the Chris Ballard press conference today should be a lot of fun. I don't know what time he is supposed to speak today, and I am very intrigued to hear what he's going to say. Colts Enjoyer, who's in an interesting account, did a really good job yesterday of highlighting one of the biggest issues with Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard has taken 10 cornerbacks in the NFL draft as the Indianapolis Colts general manager. 3 of them never played a snap for the Colts. 5 of them never played for a full season. 1 is currently on IR and is going to miss his rookie year. That is Justin Wally. 1 has appeared in all possible games. That's Kenny Moore. Actually, nope, not Kenny Moore. I guess he was an undrafted free agent. 0, that's Jalen Jones, 7th round pick out of A&M. 0 have gotten contract extensions. None have gone to the Pro Bowl. None of them have been all pros. That's really, really problematic for Chris Ballard. Okay, it's just brutal watching this guy draft cornerbacks. Like, at this point, if you play in the secondary, like if you include safeties like Malik Hooker and these other guys, if you play defensive back and you get drafted by Chris Ballard, just don't even show up, because your career is not going to go very well. You're going to get hurt, or you're going to wind up not meeting the expectations that everyone else has for you. One of the issues that I have with Chris Ballard, really nice guy. I just want good players. And I do think that there are certain things that Chris Ballard is good at. I think, like, he drafted a starting caliber left tackle in the 3rd round. When you look across the league and you look at the offensive tackles that are getting paid, they were all 1st round picks. Left tackles and quarterbacks, same thing. If you can't get them on day 1, don't even bother. And to Chris Ballard's credit, Bernard Raymond, left tackle, grabbed him in the 3rd round, and they paid him pretty big this offseason because he's a good player. But in terms of his ability to draft secondary players, like, it is a weakness. And you have to know what your weakness is. I think this was part of the issue with Bill Belichick in New England. He kept drafting receivers, even though he was terrible at drafting receivers. You have to know that. You have to understand that. And from there, you have to address those issues in free agency. Like if I know that I'm terrible at drafting, corners and safeties, I'm not going to draft corners and safeties. I'm going to wait for free agency, and I'm going to do what Chris Ballard did this year. I'm going to go sign Charvarius Ward. I'm going to go and sign Cam Bynum to play safety. That is what you have to do. We can't all be Howie Roseman in Philly, where he just drafts every position at an incredibly high level. At some point, you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And that's not just a football thing. That is a life thing, period. I know that I'm not a very good cook. I'm very limited in the kitchen, okay? So, like, I'm going to make pasta. I'm going to grill chicken. I'm going to grill hamburgers. And that is about the extent. It's almost as if I was like a 20-something-year-old bachelor at one point in my life. And those were the only three things that I can make. Quesadillas. I make a mean quesadilla. And I have a wife who also works. And she doesn't want to make dinner every night. So whenever we plan to make pasta or hamburgers or something like that, I'm in the kitchen making it because, equal partnership and all those things. And I do that because I know that I'm not a very good cook. And so when I have an opportunity to make something, like, I want to take advantage of that. Chris Ballard, it's the same thing, man. You're not good at drafting secondary players. So please don't do it anymore. And when you see a good one in free agency, go get it. Go grab him like you did Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum this offseason. It's amazing. All of a sudden, this Colts secondary might be the strength of the defense after it being a weak point last year when the Colts really just relied on the guys that Chris Ballard drafted. Here's the other thing about Chris Ballard that's really important in terms of how he drafts. I think he pays way too much attention to the athletic score of players. Like, if you look at Chris Ballard, so there's at the NFL Combine, guys will, they'll run the 40 and they'll do all these things. And then they have an athlete score. And obviously, the higher the score, the more athletic you are for your position. And when you look at Chris Ballard, he drafts guys who score really high on that athletic grade. How's it working out? It's not. I understand that you have to be an incredibly elite athlete to play in the NFL. Like, you just do. With that being said, it's not only about that. At some point, you have to turn on the film and say, yeah, this guy's a freak. He's probably, he was on the athletics freak list this last year. With that being said, he's not as good at football as this other guy is. It's really interesting. Chris Ballard loves to draft these athletic freaks, yet the Colts remain one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL year in and year out. There's just something that has to be in you to be able to wrestle another grown man to the ground who doesn't want to be wrestled to the ground. And your athletic score, it's not going to tell you that. The film is. And so I don't think that Chris Ballard is going to be here next year. I don't expect for the Indianapolis Colts to be a very good team this upcoming season. 7-10, 8-9, 9-8, kind of somewhere in that vicinity record-wise is what I am expecting from the Indianapolis Colts. And if that happens, Chris Ballard should be gone. Will he be? Who knows? He's probably going to say something really cute today and win everybody over again. We'll see if he can pull it off. So he's probably going to be gone. And I tweeted this out yesterday. I want a general manager who just drafts good players. That's really all that I want. I just want for the Colts to draft good players. If they're athletic and they have potential, great. But they have to actually be good at football. Go do that. Go find guys who have produced in college, not started quarterback for 1 year on a bad SEC team. Let's go find guys that are legitimately proven and have shown that they've got what it takes to be really good. With that being said, I don't mind teams taking flyers on guys from time to time because sometimes, if you have the right coaching staff, it really pays off. If you look at the Eagles last year, they had a linebacker named Zach Bond. Zach Bond finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, an absolute monster, a linebacker. He bounced around a little bit, but Zach Bond is a really athletic dude. He just needed to be put in the right place in order to find success in the NFL. That place was the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had a breakout year, and he was awesome. Now the Eagles are paying him a nice little chunk of change. There's a guy who was cut yesterday from his third team in the NFL. He was drafted 8th overall. I know that I just did this whole thing about potential and don't draft guys with athletic scores. With that being said, sometimes you take a flyer on a guy who's bounced around a little bit, and there's a guy in particular that I think would address the Colts' needs, and Chris Ballard should 1,000% take a flyer on this kid. I'll tell you who that is in 4 minutes.
highlights in today's sports world. It's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And you can also listen on 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Now, yesterday was cut day. Every team made cuts. I talked about, I really think that the two big ones for the Colts are former third-round pick Jelani Woods and former second-round pick Juju Brents. Not a great look there for Chris Ballard. Now, there's a guy who got cut by the Packers, and I want him here. I just did this thing where I said the potential isn't what the Colts need and how that's too important to Chris Ballard. With that being said, Chris Ballard is still the Colts general manager, so he's still looking for guys with potential. And I do think it's okay to take a flyer on a guy from time to time who you think could still wind up being a really good player. There was a guy a few years ago who was drafted 8th overall by the Arizona Cardinals, and people were very excited when he came out of Clemson University. His name's Isaiah Simmons. And the Colts desperately need a linebacker. Cameron McGrone, he's not cutting it for me. The Carlisle, who's been out for forever with an ankle, he's not cutting it for me. Samson, Alubi, or he's not cut. It's not good at the linebacker position. And say what you want about Isaiah Simmons and the struggles, went from Arizona to New York to Green Bay to getting cut. That dude's wildly talented. He was the 8th overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft for a reason. He was in the middle of that Clemson defense that won a national title for a reason. Now, you could also say, well, Jonathan, he's also been on 3 NFL teams since he was drafted for a reason. And that's very true. But the Colts are so incredibly desperate for help at linebacker. Why not take a flyer on this guy, who I guarantee you is more talented than anyone else in the Colts linebacker room? Take a flyer on the guy. He's toolsy, 6'4", 240, ran a 4.39 40-yard dash, and has a 39-inch vertical. That means he can dunk. I know we like guys who can dunk here. And certainly, the mad scientist that is Lou Anarumo, Colts' new defensive coordinator, certainly he can find a way to make him impactful on the defense, even if he's just in there to blitz. Big, strong, athletic dude who can really run. Like, put that guy in just to blitz. That's fine with me. Okay, he's athletic enough that maybe you convert him into an edge rusher. Maybe you come in, he comes in, you put 20 pounds on him. All of a sudden, he's 260. He's a little bit slower, and just let him go get the passer. He just has to find a place where he fits because, as I said, the dude is wildly talented. Let's give Lou Anarumo a chance to see if Isaiah Simmons fits here in Indy. He's cheap. He's talented. And this is what the best teams do. They take these players that other teams couldn't make work, and they make them work. Let's go back to Zach Bond, who had an awesome year last year for the Eagles. He bounced around a little bit. All of a sudden, he lands in Philly. He's playing for Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. All of a sudden, he has this breakout season where he was just awesome. The Colts have a chance to do a similar thing here with a player who plays a position that they desperately need an upgrade at, linebacker. So I would like to see them take a flyer on it. I'm going to throw that idea out to Zach Hicks here in about 35 minutes when he joins the show. I'm going to deviate here to college football because there's a guy in college football that people are very excited about. Arch Manning. It's his first year as the starting quarterback in Austin at, the biggest football school in the country, Texas. And, Colts fans are obviously very invested in Arch Manning and in Texas this year because he is the nephew of Peyton Manning. And he's wildly talented in all these things. And he's going to start on Saturday in 3 days on the road at the Horseshoe against Ohio State, where he will be underwhelming and he will struggle a little bit, but he'll have a really good year. That's kind of what I expect. Rough week 1, but he's really good from that point forward. Okay, he's playing on the road in a tough environment in Columbus, and even though you can't plant a flag at midfield anymore, that's apparently against state law, and Dave Portnoy isn't allowed into the stadium, it's still a tough place to win. That gets pretty rowdy. First-year starters at quarterback and environments like that can struggle. And that's kind of what I'm expecting from him, not only because he's on the road in a tough environment, even though that is a large part of it. There's just many variables going into this that make me question how good of a week 1 game Arch Manning is going to have. By the way, if he does struggle in that week 1 game, don't be one of the idiots who's like, oh, he's not good. Who says something insane like he was only the top-rated quarterback in his class because his last name is Manning. Now, I'm sure he's being a little overrated, a little overhyped. He is the favorite to win the Heisman despite never taking a snap. So he probably is a little overrated in that regard, but the dude's really talented. All right. The other thing that makes his week 1 matchup tough against this Ohio State team is he's playing a team with the new defensive coordinator. Matt Patricia, former Patriots guy, was the head coach of the Lions there for a bit. Matt Patricia isn't just Ohio State's new defensive coordinator. He's never coached in college football before. So Coach Sarkisian, head coach of Texas, doesn't really know what Ohio State is going to look like defensively, both from a scheme standpoint and from a player standpoint. Ohio State is replacing 8 starters from that defense last year. And it's tough to prepare for a defense when you have little idea of what they like to run. Much easier, when you're playing, let me think. Much easier to play a team like, Alabama when Nick Saban was there, right? It's like, sure, the defensive coordinator changes, but it's Nick Saban. I know what he wants to do on defense. Okay? Matt Patricia, Texas has no idea what that guy prefers. They don't know where or who is the strength on that defense. And then you throw in the fact that Texas also has 4 new starting offensive linemen playing this year. Like that's brutal. So Arch Manning is playing on the road in a tough environment against Ohio State, who's going to be talented, against a former NFL head coach calling defensive plays, who we've never seen coach in a college football game before, with 4 new offensive linemen making their first career starts. That's a tough game to get ready for with a lot of inexperience around Arch Manning. He's going to struggle in the first half. We'll see if he figures it out in the second half or not. But I do think that first half is going to be pretty brutal for Arch Manning. For the whole year, though, I do think he'll be a good player. Is he going to win the Heisman? Probably not, because whoever's the Heisman favorite to open the season never wins the Heisman. Now, the other reason why he'll be good is because, you have to be pretty terrible to struggle as the starting quarterback at Texas. You just got to be awful, because Texas is going to have great wide receivers. They're projected to have the best defense in college football this year. If you go and you read the articles, and it's like, who has the best defensive line? Texas. Who has the best linebackers? Texas. Who has the best secondary? Texas. You see it everywhere. Like that defense is supposed to be really stout, so they're going to keep them in ball games, even if Arch Manning has a tough day. Coach Sarkisian, really good head coach. I know the offensive line is really new, but you know that they're going to be talented because they're playing at Texas. Same thing with the running backs. Everything around Arch Manning is going to be good. So I'd be really stunned if he struggled this year. The thing for me that I want to pay attention to with the Longhorns is what do they do in the balance situations? When they're up 28-24 and it's 3rd and 8, do they, put the ball in Arch Manning's hands and throw it so he can make a play to maybe pick up a first down and close out the game? Or do they do what the Colts are going to do in that situation this year? Colts are up 28-24, 3rd and 8. Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard, Jason Bean, whoever's back there playing quarterback, they're not going to let them throw the football on that 3rd and 8. It's not going to happen. They're going to turn around. They're going to hand it off to Jonathan Taylor, and they're going to trust the defense because they don't trust whoever's going to be playing quarterback in that situation for the Colts to make that play. Does Coach Sarkisian trust Arch Manning in those spots? And that's really how I'll be judging Arch Manning this year. He's going to have success. He's going to put up numbers. It's impossible not to do that. Playing with that roster under a guy like Coach Sarkisian, one of the better head coaches in the sport. But does Coach Sarkisian trust him in big spots more than any other part of his team? That is the thing that I want to know. And for Colts fans, I'm sure that you're hoping that Arch Manning is trusted in those big spots because you want him to be a Colt. It feels like consensus opinion now amongst the Colts fan base that the Colts are going to be bad this year. I've seen a lot of 5-12, 4-13 predictions. I don't think that they're going to be that bad. I think they're going to be, 7-10, 8-9, somewhere in there. But let's say I'm wrong. Probably not going to happen, but let's say I'm wrong. And the Colts go 4-13, and they have the number 1 overall pick. And everyone's going to be like, oh, man, the Colts are going to get Arch Manning, and it's going to be so cool. Peyton Manning's nephew, he's going to be here in Indy. Yeah, I'm here to burst your bubble. I'm going to talk to Zach Hicks about this too here in about 27 minutes. The Colts drafted a young, inexperienced quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And it appears that has failed. Benched twice in the last 2 years, even though Anthony Richardson will likely play this year. Could he earn his job back? Maybe. I wouldn't bet on it, though. There's a reason why he's been benched twice. There's a reason why they're going with the one and only Daniel Jones, of all people, to be the starter. And it feels like it's because they've kind of given up on Anthony Richardson. I know there are Colts fans out there who want them to tank for Arch Manning, okay? And you're not the only fan base that wants that to happen. Saints fans are not far off from you. Oh, you mean we can get Archie Manning's grandson in here? Got to do that. But I'm telling you right now that even if the Colts were to grab the number 1 overall pick, even if they're bad enough to draft Arch Manning, they will not do it. I'm telling you right now, the Colts will not draft Arch Manning the following season. And I say that, and you're like, oh, Jonathan, you're crazy. Of course they would draft Arch Manning. His last name's Manning. He played at Texas. He's number 1 ranked quarterback in his high school class. But people do what the Colts are about to do all the time. A young guy dates a loud, super social girl. She breaks his heart. Then what happens? The next girl he dates is the total opposite. Someone quiet and reserved. The great correction happens all the time in our daily lives. And it's about to happen again with the Colts quarterback situation. They're doing it right now. Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson are completely different. Sure, they're both athletic. But, Anthony Richardson pushed the ball down the field, big plays. Nope, let's bring in Daniel Jones. Conservative, check down Charlie, throwing the football underneath. The Colts just got burned because they drafted a young, inexperienced quarterback who had 1 year's worth of starts under his belt in college. if Arch Manning's really good this year and he declares for the draft, he will be a young, inexperienced quarterback with 1 year of college starts under his belt. Sound like anyone that's played quarterback here recently? Meanwhile, players like Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, Nico Iamaleava, Lenoris Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, Fernando Mendoza, that's 6 guys that could all potentially go in the first round to the Colts if the Colts are bad. All those guys have multiple years of being a starter under their belts. Guys like Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik, you're going to have like 3 years worth of film to go back and watch. They're going to have thrown like 3 times as many passes as Arch Manning has. Garrett Nussmeier is going to have thrown, and Lenore Sellers are both going to have thrown twice as many passes as Arch Manning. And the Colts just got burned by drafting a guy who hadn't played very much. Teams overcorrect all the time. And if they have an opportunity to draft an Arch Manning or any of those other really experienced guys, especially a Drew Aller or a Cade Klubnik, I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Colts opted for the guy that has played significantly more than Arch Manning. And both of those guys, or 2 of the guys that I mentioned, are going to be playing in the best college football game on Saturday. I can't wait for that game. Can't wait for it. Everyone's pumped up for Ohio State and Texas, but that is not the best football game on Saturday. I'll tell you what the best football game is on Saturday coming up in 4 minutes.
at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. College football continues because it started last week on Saturday. Very excited. It's just a loaded day. I mean, the games are going to be awesome, and everyone's looking forward to the big noon game, especially those Ohio State fans. I just know how much you guys love playing at noon every single week. And, people are looking forward to it. We have games starting. We got a lot of games tomorrow night, Thursday night as well. Boise State, they're going to play South Florida. It's the only ranked team that's playing. And I think that's really Nebraska's going to play Cincinnati, right? So like that game could be interesting. That game's on at 9:00. What are we doing? And so they're like, we've got some college football starting up tomorrow night. There are games on Friday night as well. Georgia Tech is going to play Colorado. That game could actually kind of be interesting. Auburn plays Baylor, 8:00, Fox on Friday night. Hopefully you don't have YouTube TV, because if you do, you may not be able to watch that game. So like we're getting there, right? And then Saturday. Oh, Saturday is going to be great. Noon, Texas, Ohio State. Also at noon, Syracuse plays Tennessee. Purdue fans, you guys play at noon. That's a big deal if you're in the Big Ten, if you get to play at noon. Old Dominion's going to play Indiana. Alabama plays Florida State at 3:30. The Florida State team's been talking a lot of trash. Nick Saban's not there to save you. All that really kind of bizarre stuff. And then I'm trying to look at other games. Okay. And then the nightcap, we have the best game of the day, or what I would define as the best game of the day. Everyone's looking forward to Ohio State and Texas. Two big brands. Okay. Arch Manning, a big brand in and of himself, is starting. Ohio State, they are the reigning national champions, right? They've got a former 5-star quarterback who's playing as well. So they're like, I'm not saying that you're wrong to be excited if you were the most excited about this game. Like, that's cool. There's a lot of people picking Texas to win the whole thing. I'm sure there are people out there picking Ohio State to win the whole thing, because both teams are just going to be wildly talented, as they always are. Notre Dame and Miami, I skipped over that game. They're both supposed to be good. People are looking forward to that. How does Carson Beck look playing for Miami? How good is CJ Carr going to be for Notre Dame? They had a bit of a quarterback competition there, and they ended up going with CJ Carr, but apparently the decision wasn't easy. So that either means that CJ Carr is not very good, or it means that the backup quarterback at Notre Dame is really good. We're going to find out really quickly when they play Miami. Right? So that game is interesting for those reasons. Ohio State, Texas, two of the biggest brands in the sport. But the most interesting game of the day on Saturday is LSU and Clemson. Because LSU thinks that they have a team good enough to compete for and potentially win a national title. Clemson, same thing. They have a team that they think is good enough to win the national title. Garrett Nussmeier could potentially be the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. He would have been a first-round pick this last year, but he decided to go back to LSU for his senior year. Cade Klubnik, same thing. Could have been a first-round pick, decided to go back to Clemson. He's a senior. Like, he could potentially be the number 1 overall pick. Those two guys could potentially be the first and second quarterbacks taken in the next NFL draft. And then you throw in the rest of the talent around them. I was talking to Kevin Potts the other day. I don't know, maybe you heard the interview, maybe you didn't. 2 of his top 5 players in terms of like NFL draft big board, 2 of them play on the defensive line for Clemson. LSU brought in a ton of transfers, a lot of them. Okay? And it was ranked the best transfer portal class in all of college football, according to 24/7 Sports. So the talent on the field is going to be insane. It has been said multiple times that the receivers at Clemson are supposed to be awesome. When they were competing for national titles, that was always an important component of their roster. They tend to always have great wide receivers at Clemson, and that hasn't been a thing for the past, few years now, but that is apparently changing. So there's a ton of talent for Clemson. There's a ton of talent for LSU as well. And there's obviously a little more intrigue with LSU's roster because there are so many transfers. And we've seen instances in both college football and college basketball where teams bring in a ton of transfers that are highly touted. And then for one reason or another, they just don't pan out. Whatever reason that may be, maybe it's injuries, maybe guys don't mesh very well, maybe guys are overrated in terms of their ranking and all those things. So there's some intrigue with LSU's roster from that standpoint. Clemson, though, is a legitimate national title contender, and they'll have a chance to make a statement against LSU week 1. And I kind of hope they do. It's at home. They should win. And if they do, then everyone down there in good old Baton Rouge is going to be calling for Brian Kelly's job. Even though, my favorite thing about college football, the game doesn't really matter because even if LSU loses, they can still make the playoff. Same goes for Texas and Ohio State. If one of them loses, then, it doesn't really matter because if you lose, you can still make the playoff. Same goes for Miami and Notre Dame. So the lore around the games isn't as great because of that. But hey, that's fine. This is what people wanted when they went to a 12-team playoff. So if Clemson wins, then LSU fans get all up in arms. They're going to start calling for Brian Kelly's job, and it's going to be really funny, especially someone who's not a big Brian Kelly fan. But LSU, they're going to have an opportunity to make a statement as well that, hey, we should be in this national title conversation. We just went on the road to Clemson and beat them. And it's going to be great. Everyone in the country is going to be rooting against LSU. They're going to be rooting for Clemson. And then if Clemson wins, everyone's going to be like, oh, see, the SEC sucks. So if you're a Big Ten guy, then you have a rooting interest in this as well. But both teams really have an opportunity to kind of announce their arrival as a team that is a serious national title contender. So week 1 of the college football season, it's awesome. There are a ton of really good games going on. And this is the one, though, for me, that takes the cake. Because there's 2 solidified quarterbacks that we know are going to be good. As I said, potentially the first and second quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft. We'll see what winds up happening with guys like Drew Aller and Arch Manning and Lenore Sellers and so on. But on a loaded day, Texas, Ohio State, Syracuse, Tennessee, that game going to be a lot of fun as well. I'm blanking. Alabama and Florida State, right? That game could actually be really interesting. I know people are really excited about what Alabama is going to look like. It's really interesting. We're not talking about Alabama probably as much as we should be, but Kalen DeBoer, year 2, that's a guy who didn't lose very many games, who hasn't lost very many games throughout his coaching career. Year 2, his guys, they're going to be better this year than they were last year. I do fully expect that. Florida State, we'll see if Mike Norvell can get it rolling there once again. UTSA is usually one of the better mid-major programs. They're going to play Texas A&M upset alert, maybe. I don't know. That's me just being funny. Um, Virginia Tech, they're going to play South Carolina on Sunday. That game should be fun. There's a lot of history with that one. Shane Beamer, son of Virginia Tech legend, Coach Beamer, who seemed to be there for forever. And then obviously the nightcap on Sunday night is Notre Dame and Miami, national TV, Carson Beck, CJ Carr, convicts versus Catholics, as it's called. That game's going to be awesome to watch as well. And then Monday night, prime time, we get a front row seat to TCU playing North Carolina on Chapel Bill. Bill Belichick, first game as a college head coach. Should be a lot of fun. North Carolina is an underdog in that game, but I don't know. You really going to bet against Belichick, who's probably a better head coach than the majority of the guys in the world of college football? I don't know. I might bet North Carolina there. We'll see. But it's a loaded week one. I'm so excited for it, man. Like football, it's back starting on Saturday. And then the following Sunday, the NFL season starts. It's a great time of the year. I'm so excited. I'm so ready for games. Like I'm so sick of having to be like, Jonathan Taylor's going to have a good year. And I'm so sick of having to be like, Daniel Jones isn't very good. There's only so many ways for me to tell you how bad Daniel Jones is and the rest of this Colts roster. I'm ready to see it in action. I'm ready to see the suckage in action. It's going to be terrible, but it'll be great because I'm going to come on here on Monday and we're going to have a great show, and we'll have a great show on Tuesdays and so on. I'm ready for games. I know that you're ready for games as well. My wife is not ready for games. Just because, she knows how important all of this stuff is to me. So, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Speaking of being good, Zach Hicks is set to join the show next. We will continue to talk about Colts cuts, Chris Ballard missteps, all of those great things that I know that, we love to cover here on The Real Jonathan Smith Show. We'll talk about some surprises as well. It'll be good. He has a much better grasp of the waiver wire guys than I do. So I'll ask him about, different guys on other teams who were cuts that he wouldn't mind seeing the Colts go out and get. Zach Hicks, Locked On Colts, joins the show in 5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can follow our guest, Zach Hicks, there as well at Zach Hicks 2, host of the Locked On Colts podcast. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Entertaining day yesterday. Unfortunate day for 1,100 players that got cut from teams, but we're finally getting closer to the regular season. It's right around the corner, and we can start talking about wins and losses that actually matter. So I'm pretty pumped for it.
I closed my last segment, Zach, for 2 minutes talking about just that. It's like I'm so sick of being like, if Daniel Jones can throw for 3,500 yards and throw like 6 interceptions this year, then I think that the Colts could be good. I'm so tired of doing that. I'm ready for the real thing. And like you said, cut day is, that's a symbol that we're really close. Were there any cuts that surprised you for the Colts?
Yeah, I think the Juju Brents cut obviously surprised everyone, and I don't even know if it was really to do with like Juju Brents' play this offseason. It was just more so the fact that they've had the injuries at corner and they've had a lot of questions at corner this offseason that it kind of made it weird to cut him, because that was at least like a known-ish commodity, a guy they invested a top 50 pick in, a guy who has played somewhat well when he's been on the field. So it felt like a weird move to cut him there. But, when you factor in that they're working out Hilton today, and they just made the trade for Mekhi Blackman. And also they're really high on Jonathan Edwards, who was an undrafted free agent that came in here and played well. It kind of makes sense. So I think at the moment it was shocking when they waived Juju Brents, but overall it does kind of make sense when they're working out, all these other people here, and they're trying to just keep revamping that cornerback room. Aside from that, I think every other cut or release, had some semblance of sense to it. I mean, Isaiah Land, I didn't want them to lose Isaiah Land, but, they've already kind of decided they're going to roll with Samson Ebukam coming off this Achilles injury. So with that, you weren't going to be able to keep as many defensive ends as you'd like, and Isaiah Land had to be the odd man out. So, yeah, I think the rest of the moves kind of made sense and were what we expected. The Juju Brents was obviously the big headliner, though, and when you factor in the other moves they've made at corner, you can kind of rationalize that in your head as well.
You can, and I've heard you say and other people that Juju Brents just stylistically, I guess, doesn't fit what Lou Anarumo likes to do. So I'm sure that had something to do with it as well. And then you throw in all of the injuries, and that does it for you. I think I saw you tweet that you went back and you watched some Blackman tape from his rookie year when he was playing with the Vikings. What'd you make of him?
Yeah, I think he's a solid player. I think the ACL injury is concerning because this preseason wasn't great for him. And the other aspect of this too is he's just so skinny. He is so small. This is like 170-something pound corner. He kind of does look like Isaiah Rodgers. Yeah, he looks a little bit like Isaiah Rodgers out there, because Isaiah Rodgers was this small as well, but I don't think he's got the same explosiveness. But I think the Colts are just banking on like, hey, this was a former third-round pick who has played well on special teams in his career, had some playmaking ability, he can turn and run a little bit, and we're going to see what we can get out of him as a reserve nickel corner in this system. So, burning a 6th-round pick, it maybe feels like a little bit much for a cut-down guy, but I mean, you're taking a shot on a former 3rd-round pick and kind of seeing what he's got there. I don't know how much he's going to factor in this season. Hopefully it's not like last year's, waiver claim guys where they had to start an entire season for the Colts. But I think they're just kind of banking on like him getting back from that ACL injury, returning to that playmaking ability he had as a rookie with the Vikings, and maybe eventually being the long-term option at nickel post Kenny Moore. So I don't mind the swing there on Blackman. I think it's a worthy swing to take here at the end of the offseason. I just don't think he's going to factor in too much this season because they have so many veteran guys ahead of him, especially on the outside at corner.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about who the Colts cut yesterday, making the trade for Blackman, for giving up a 6th-round pick for Blackman from the Vikings. So, Zach, I like talking to you about the Colts just because I feel like you know the roster better than anyone, especially when it comes to the preseason. Who were the guys that got cut that you weren't surprised by, but really liked and could see either on the Colts practice squad or getting claimed off waivers by another team?
Yeah, I mean, the guy who won me the most over this offseason was Coleman Owen at wide receiver. And I think anyone who watched the Colts preseason games would say the same. Coleman Owen had a really awesome summer just in terms of the punt returning. He had the one punt returning gap in the finale, but aside from that, the punt returning was great. I thought him at receiver, he looked like Josh Downs out there as a pass catcher. And even when you factor in what he was in college, where he was an undrafted free agent, but I think he was 4th or 5th in college football in receiving yards last year as well. They were talking about on the broadcast a couple of times. It's just a small player without super athletic traits or whatever. It made him fall through the cracks. But if I'm the Colts, I'm getting him on the practice squad immediately and having him be that next man up behind Anthony Gould and Josh Downs. I think that's an awesome fit for him with this team. Some other players, Ulysses Bentley at running back, I thought did a lot of good things. Another player where he was very productive in college, but ultimately he fell through the cracks because he's not this super athletic, fast player. But I thought he ran the ball really well and did some good things this preseason. I'd love to get him on the practice squad. And then a lot of these corners as well. Alex Johnson is one of their first cuts. So I don't know if that means that they are trying to move on from him, but I thought Alex Johnson had a really good summer and his entire preseason showing was awesome. Trey Washington at safety, another undrafted free agent, had some good plays out there. I know a lot of it's going to be kind of muddied by that unfortunate Salvon Ahmed injury that he hip dropped him in practice, but I thought Washington had a pretty good preseason, tackled really well, did some good things. So yeah, there's a lot of good players out there on this roster that I think, there wasn't really spot for them to make the team, but I think they could be good on the practice squad. But if you're looking at who might get claimed, I think Jelani Woods and Juju Brents are the two that come to mind first that probably get claimed out there on waivers. And I think Isaiah Land has a decent shot as well.
That's a bummer because I whenever watching the preseason games, you can just tell the guys who don't need to be out there with backups. And I always thought that Isaiah Land was one of those guys, and Laquan Treadwell, the same thing on offense. I think Coleman Owen showed that a bit as well. So I really hope that Isaiah Land cannot get picked up and the Colts can bring him back because I thought that he looked really good in the preseason, and I know the Colts have spent a decent chunk of time developing him over the last couple of years. Who's going to back up Nick Cross at strong safety?
I think as of right now, it's Daniel Scott is going to be the backup strong safety, or we could see them do something where Rodney Thomas is just the third safety general. And
please no.
Yeah,
please don't do that.
I'm with you too, man. I'm not a huge fan of Rodney Thomas either. I thought the preseason was pretty rough for him. Another interesting thing, though, it could be Mike Hilton, who they're working out today. Hilton did play a good chunk of safety under Lou Anarumo, in terms of just rotating back and playing some safety. So part of me is wondering if that's where they're working him out to come in and play strong safety. I think that could be an interesting aspect of that workout. So we'll see, if they do ultimately sign him, how they announce that signing, if it's a safety or a cornerback move. So I think there are a couple things up in the air with that backup safety. But for what I would do personally, and I think you agree, is I'd prefer Daniel Scott to be the backup strong safety than Rodney Thomas being that. But we'll see. The Hunter Wohler injury is just big, man. That hurts so much because Hunter Wohler was going to be an impact player this year, and to lose him for the entire year to that Liz Frank injury is just brutal for this team.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about cuts that the Colts made yesterday. So, Zach, this is another reason why I like having you on. You're definitely going to know more about waiver wire guys than I am. But there's one guy in particular that I want the Colts to take a flyer on so bad. And I've seen two other teams do it, and it didn't go well, but I don't really care. I want Isaiah Simmons here. I want Isaiah Simmons here so badly. Like I have deemed the Colts linebacking group, that is the we like our guys position group of the year, which to me, I don't think I've told you this, but that is the position group that Chris Ballard, for whatever reason, feels good about, even though no one else does. And that usually doesn't go very well. And like, he's just a freaky athlete. Lou Anarumo seems like the kind of defensive coordinator who could find a spot for him to be productive. So of all the waiver guys, that is the guy that I want the most. What do you kind of think about that?
Yeah. So first off, my co-host Jake Arthur would completely agree with you when it comes to that being the we like our guys position. He's been pounding that table all off season when it comes to that. So he very much agrees with you there. When it comes to waiver claims here, one important note when it comes to Isaiah Simmons is he's actually not subject to waivers. He is a vested veteran. Yeah. So he's a vested veteran, so he can actually sign with anybody as of right now. So I do agree with you that he makes some sense for the Colts. He actually overlapped with Colts DB coach Jerome Henderson with the Giants last year. So, if there is mutual interest between the two, because I know the Colts are apparently, I know that you're on live right now, so I don't know if you saw it, but the Colts are working out Anthony Walker tomorrow. So if that doesn't go well, or if they want to bring in more veterans, Isaiah Simmons could be another guy with that connection to Jerome Henderson. They want to bring him in. So I very much agree with you. It's just it wouldn't be a waiver claim for Isaiah Simmons.
Okay, that's why I have you on, because you can correct me on things like that. Yeah. That's awesome. Speaking of, I guess free agents, or whatever the proper term is for what Isaiah Simmons is, and waiver guys, who are some guys that you're interested in?
Yeah, so I have the big list right here. So I'm just going through all these 4,000 names that basically got released the other day. And there's a good chunk of players. I mean, the one team I'm really looking at is the Baltimore Ravens. The Colts got that extended look at them with the joint practice and the preseason game. I think cornerback Jalen Armour-Davis was just fantastic against them in that preseason showing and also in the joint practice. So if they wanted just to add another outside corner to this thing, I think Jalen Armour-Davis makes sense. Looking at the defensive line, though, of the Ravens, that's where they really have my interest. CJ Okoye, I think he's like a Nigerian-born defensive tackle that was in his first or second year this year, like 370 pounds, super athletic, made Tanner Bortolini look foolish on a sack in the or on a QB hit in the preseason. I'd be so interested in getting him in here as the backup nose tackle. CJ Ravenel is another dude on the defensive line that I like from the Ravens. I think he can make some sense there. And there's a couple other guys around the league that were standing out to me. There's a linebacker from the Rams, Pooh Paul. I know his name is legit Pooh Paul. Is what he goes by there. Fifth round pick out of Ole Miss. He was beat out by Sean Dolak in camp, so he got released. He would be interesting. Good run and chase linebacker. Really short arms, but I think the arms aren't as big a deal anymore with the Colts. If we're looking at running backs, the Chargers released Kamani Vidal, a player where, if anyone likes fantasy football, was getting so much hype last offseason as like the guy to get with the Chargers. He got waived by them, and really good contact balance, fun player there. Sam Ehlinger got cut. We could bring him back.
There's a select number of Colts fans who would love that.
Why not, right? Yeah. Trade Anthony Richardson and go Sam Ehlinger and just go all off-season stuff there. But yeah, there's a chunk of players here across the league that I'm interested in. I think Isaiah Simmons, though, is an interesting one, though, that you mentioned, just because of that tie to Jerome Henderson. I think that one just makes a lot of sense, especially because you could just sign him now, too. And also, again, I mentioned a second ago, Anthony Walker is coming in for a tryout tomorrow. So they're already kind of exploring the veteran market. The waivers will be processed today at noon. One thing to keep in mind, too, with waivers, for people who don't know, is there were almost 1,200 people released or waived yesterday, and on average, roughly 2 to 4% of them get claimed. It's a really small number. So if you're sitting here being like, oh man, I hope Cole Owen can get to the practice squad, I hope Darrell and Chami can get to the practice squad, odds are they are going to get there. It's not many people get claimed. The Colts have claimed up to 3 in the past, but I think they're going more the veteran route this year, so I don't even know if they'll claim more than like 1 or 2. I think linebacker is clearly one, though, that we'll see them be active in. I just don't know if it'll be, the Anthony Walker signing or if it'll be like a claim of someone today.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about potential waiver guys for the Colts to go out and get. I think the other one that really kind of popped out, you said his name, I'm not even going to try, the 370-pound nose guard from the Ravens. This is a new take that I launched probably like a month ago. I don't think that the Colts have enough beef on the defensive line. It's a lot of like 280. I think Grover Stewart is like barely 300 pounds. I want a beefy dude in the middle, man, because I just think that helps so much with the run defense, especially on the snaps where Grover Stewart and or DeForest Buckner aren't playing. So a guy like that, I think, would be perfect for the Colts.
Yeah, no, it's a big reason why I was looking at the Ravens roster all offseason, because when the Colts played them in that first preseason game, I'm just noticing these guys who are all like 350, 360, 370. They had a rotation of those guys coming in and just wreaking havoc on the Colts offensive line. That, I mean, look, I love Tanner Bortolini. I think he's going to be really good this year. But if you're trying to run duo or inside zone against a 370-pound defensive tackle, he's not going to get that guy out of the lane there. That's a good 80 pounds on Tanner Bortolini there. So I was really intrigued by their D-line, and CJ Okoye I thought had a really good offseason for them. So that's certainly a guy that I'd be interested in.
What if
for the Colts? And I agree with you. What were you saying?
You go ahead. Go. All you.
Okay. No, I was just going to say that I love more beef on the inside of the defensive line. Like you said, Grover Stewart's 305, 310 at best. Neville Gallimore's actually 320 something, but he plays like a 3-tech. He's not a nose tackle by trade. He's just more of that explosive upfield guy. I want more nose tackles. I dream of the day of Al Woods being back here, man. I miss Al Woods. That was my thing, man. I love big nose tackles. So just a guy who can eat double teams and make life easier for your linebacker. I think that is such an important aspect to have. And Grover Stewart's fantastic. He's almost perfect. I love him to death, but he can't play 100% of the snaps. You need a guy behind him that can do these things. And I have yet to see it from a Gallimore, from Adetomiwa, from Eric Johnson, from Tim Smith. I don't know if those guys can even provide a semblance of the same impact that Stewart does. So I'm with you, man. Get some beef in here. Get a 350-pound guy. Just eat up the middle, and let's go from there.
What if instead of 350 pounds, we made the leap to 434 pounds and we just went and got Desmond Watson? That dude eats
where
blocks,
he didn't even
cheeseburgers. He eats everything, man.
Yeah. Didn't touch the field whatsoever this offseason for them, because they gave him a crazy goal of what he had to cut weight. And I kind of feel bad for him too, because he comes into camp and they're like, you have to cut 100 pounds this offseason. He's like, what? How am I supposed to cut 100 pounds in 2 months? But hopefully they have a plan for him on the practice squad, and they can work with him, because that would feel really, really wrong if they just told him cut 100 pounds or else you're gone. But yeah, man, look, let's get the beef out here. Let's get him in here, and let's just every snap he's on there, he just has to dive forward, and that's it. That's all you got to do, and we're good.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about cuts that the Colts have made. Two more questions for you. You brought up Bortolini earlier and how he struggled to move, guys that are 370 pounds when they were playing the Ravens. And to defend Bortolini, I don't think that there's very many centers who would have success in doing that. I was thinking about this the other day. Do you think that if the Colts had a center who'd been around a little bit longer, they might have been more willing to go with Anthony Richardson as the starter, just because you'd be able to take some of the protection stuff off of his plate and give it to the center?
Yeah, I think in retrospect, it should have been the first indication that Richardson was not the favorite for the starting quarterback job. And I'm kicking myself for not noticing it earlier in the offseason because Jake, who was there at every practice, kept telling me, like, yeah, when Pinter was getting reps with the first team, Richardson was getting those reps. And then when Bortolini was getting reps with the first team, it was Daniel Jones. And I just never put it together that they're probably doing that intentionally with having the more veteran center with the younger quarterback and the younger center with the more veteran quarterback, because we knew who they wanted to start at center. So I should have put 2 and 2 together on who they want to start at quarterback. But I do agree with you that I think maybe having a more veteran center would have made more sense for Richardson, because in the preseason we saw Bortolini and Richardson out there together for a handful of snaps. And when those happened, we saw 2 completely unblocked sacks happen. And I'm not saying it's 100% on Richardson. I'm not saying it's 100% on Bortolini, but it's probably a good mixture of both those guys, where just 2 young guys who are just not fully up to speed with protection calls, missing what their assignment was supposed to be, or missing what their reads are on the pre-snap, and it led to 2 unblocked sacks. And if that's happening in the preseason, it's probably a good indication for what could happen in the regular season. So I think that just gave more credence to what the Colts were thinking would be the issue if those 2 both started. And ultimately that was probably a good indication that Daniel Jones was their likely starter from day one of training camp.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Look, Zach, you know how it is, man. Like, in the content game, like, you have to talk about Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson at least a little bit. So I figured I'd throw that in there. Last thing for you. This is a more fun question. You know, I like to have fun occasionally. It's not all doom and gloom. The Colts are going to be bad. It's 2025, and Amari Cooper's a Raider again. Adam Thielen is a Viking again. Keenan Allen's a Charger again. And Brandon Cooks is playing for the Saints. Is there anyone in the league right now that you wouldn't mind seeing like a Colts reunion with?
No, I mean, I think the biggest one is if we call up the Giants and beg for Bobby Okereke back, right? Like, that would be a huge one for the Colts, right? And you have to see, I know that Okereke and the Giants' tenure together hasn't been perfect, so you have to see like what it would take to pry him away. But I think that's the number one across the league. I mean, me personally, I would call the Vikings and say, look, please just give us Will Fries back. I need him back in my life. Will Fries, my favorite player in football. I'd love to have him back. But I think realistically speaking, like, maybe there's a world where you could get Okereke away from the Giants because of, how up and down it's been. I don't know if they have any linebackers on the roster that they are like intrigued by to make a move like that, because their whole team is also on the hot seat, just like the Colts front office is. So it'd be tough to maybe get that move going. But I think that's the biggest one for the Colts. It's like, if they could get Okereke back here. I mean, look, you said it. The linebacker position is very much a we like our guys right now. I think that would change a lot if they had Bobby Okereke in here next to Zaire Franklin instead of Joe Bocci and a couple other dudes. Like, not to say Bocci is going to be awful this year, but you would be you feel a lot better with Bobby Okereke. So, I think that would be the big reunion one across the league for the Colts.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Zach, as I do every time you're on, I lied. That was not the last thing. This is the last thing. I don't know if you caught this yesterday, but Colts Enjoyer over on X, which is an interesting account, they posted something that I actually kind of opened my show with. They went through the history of Chris Ballard and his attempt to draft cornerbacks. It's not great. 3 never played a snap. 5 never played a full season. 1's on IR right now. Only 1 has appeared in all possible games, and that's 7th round pick Jalen Jones. 0 of them have had contract extensions, no Pro Bowls, and no All Pros. Why do you think Chris Ballard has struggled to draft corners so much?
Yeah, I mean, the unscathing answer at the top of this is just, it's tough to draft in the NFL. It really is. Like, I know people think this is an excuse right here, but it is very difficult to draft in the NFL. And a lot of it's a crapshoot, especially when it comes to injuries. And a lot of these guys have dealt with injuries. I mean, look, Juju Brents has played in 11 of 34 games. And for as much as you want to kill Chris Ballard for it, injuries happen. It's hard. Like, it's kind of hard to predict that at the NFL level, but to go more so at Chris Ballard now with this, is he's kind of always predicated on drafting size at corner. And don't get me wrong, I love big corners. I've always been a big corner guy. But that size at corner is kind of tough in a modern NFL where a lot of this is just specialized. Specialized in terms of athleticism, specialized in terms of skill set. And you look at the guys who have just worked for him have been Jalen Jones, who is not he's a bigger corner, but he's not like the prototype that the Colts look for. He's got smaller arms. He's not super athletic, but he's worked because a very experienced college guy who was very productive in college. You look at another guy who's worked for him, Isaiah Rodgers. I know Isaiah Rodgers is going to count as like one of those misses there, but I thought Isaiah Rodgers was arguably his best pick at corner. And what was he? He was, 5'10", 170 something pounds with super athleticism. Kenny Moore, another guy who's worked for him that he didn't draft, but he grabbed off waivers, 5'9", 180 pounds, super athletic, and a really heady and smart football player. So I think he just didn't learn this early enough in his career where it's like maybe instead of chasing the traits and chasing the size and chasing just the prototype he's looking for, at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to go get some ball players, and go get some guys who have experience, who know what they're doing and have that like innate nature to play the position. And I think, those were pretty big swings that he took on like the Quincy Wilsons, a 21-year-old, pretty athletic, big corner. Juju Brents, big, long, athletic corner. Those were just kind of big swings he took, and he unfortunately just missed. So, it is a crapshoot, and I think something with those numbers that gets inflated a little bit is like lumping in like day 3 picks, because day 3 picks already have such a low chance of working out. But we can certainly critique his early picks like the Rocky Sins and the Quincy Wilsons and the Juju Brents. And he took big swings on guys who fit his prototype, and it didn't work. And the guys who did hit later in the draft, like the Isaiah Rodgers and the Jalen Jones, were just darn good football players, that didn't really fit his type. So hopefully, if he gets another chance at this, even if it's with the Colts or someone else, he's learned that lesson and he adjusts. I mean, I think at wide receiver, he did a pretty good job of adjusting over time, where early on he kept taking like the same wide receiver. And then we saw him branch out a little bit to like a Josh Downs, who's been pretty darn good with the Colts. So he has shown the ability to grow a little bit as a drafter. It's just corner had so many misses early in his tenure that it certainly kind of mars his ability to take that position.
Yeah, my thing is like, I just think it's important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. Like Chris Ballard's ability, like look, the fact that he found a starting left tackle that's pretty good in the 3rd round, like that's really impressive. I do think that drafting offensive linemen is a strength of his. And I just think at some point you got to be like, you know what? I'm not very good at drafting corners. So we're going to go get Charvarius Ward in free agency and things like that. I thought that's something that Bill Belichick never really did in New England. Like he was terrible at drafting receivers. And when you look at the best Patriot teams, it's when they went and got Randy Moss in free agency. So I kind of wish that he would maybe adjust to that a little bit. I do like what you said about the best player. Some of the best corners that he's drafted have been guys that have just played more. I don't know if you've seen this. I've seen a lot of Colts fans kind of project that the Colts are going to go like 5-12 or 4-13. I don't think that they're going to be quite that bad. But if they are, I think teams overcorrect all the time. What would the reaction be if the Colts had a chance to draft Arch Manning, but they took a Cade Klubnik or a Drew Aller, a guy who's played a lot of football over Arch? I think, because, look, this is an oversimplification, and it is not fair at all what I'm about to say. But Chris Ballard got burned because he drafted Anthony Richardson, who played 1 year, who started for 1 year at Florida, and that was really it. Arch Manning is going to start 1 year at Texas and then probably go into the draft. The Colts just got burned on, not in exactly the same situation, but something similar. And you got guys like Klubnik and Aller who've just played a lot more football. I kind of hope it happens just because I think it'd be really funny.
Oh God, that would be insane, especially if he's making that pick. If he's making that pick when they won 4 games, something went terribly wrong. But living in this world with you here for a second, maybe I could see it. I mean, like we keep talking about that 2023 class being a disaster for Chris Ballard, and rightfully so. I mean, His only hits were Josh Downs and Jalen Jones, who were both young players, but just played a ton in college. But the Juju Brents injuries, the Anthony Richardson injuries, you look at some of the other shots he took with like Blake Freeland, just a terrible pick. Like, yeah, it was a really, really bad class for him. And then we look at how he adjusted the next 2 years. The athleticism scores and stuff did drop a lot in 2024, and especially this past year in 2025, to where it's more so getting experienced football players that stuck with one program. And I mean, so far, I think this upcoming rookie class looks pretty good with Tyler Warren, JT Tuimoloau. I think Justin Wally was going to be awesome this year. So we are seeing maybe these draft classes going better. But to your overall point, I mean, Lucas Oil Stadium might burn down if they took anybody over Arch Manning in that scenario. But maybe, God, I don't even want to entertain this because it's like, if he's making this pick, something went wrong, man.
Yeah.
Like, why would he be making this pick in this?
I don't know, man.
Great
question.
Like that would throw me off. But yeah, I could see it. The thing is with him though, like at the end of the day, he's still so much more upside than not. And honestly, I respect him for it because like we could talk about him being like bargain bin Ballard and like this passive general manager, but in the draft, he swings for the fences, man. He goes for the guys who have the chance to be stars, and then if they bust, they like really bust, like he did with Anthony Richardson. So I mean, I respect that process. So I don't know if he would really pull back from that with like a guy like Arch Manning versus like Drew Aller, who I think Drew Aller, his peak in the NFL is like a fine quarterback. Like I think he'd be fine, but Arch Manning, if everything clicks, could maybe be like another Drake May, which is a really, really good quarterback.
It is.
I think he would still go for the upside in this crazy scenario.
He probably would, but it'd be really funny. Zach, thanks for your time as always, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
That is Zach Hicks. You can check him out over on X at Zach Hicks 2. You can check him out on the Locked On Colts podcast as well. Both him and Jake Arthur do an excellent job. When we come back here in a couple minutes, more on who the Colts cut.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt. Uh-oh.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there. If you want to watch the show there as well, you can do that. And, of course, the Indy Sports Ticket app and 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Otter Creek chimed in over on the YouTube chat. Once again, Indy Sports Ticket. Head over there and subscribe. Talking about how he could see Arch Manning staying at Texas for another year because he comes from money and he would make probably a similar amount in NIL as he would his rookie year in the NFL. It's never about the first contract. This is why people don't stay. This is why people leave. Because no matter how much Texas and whatever other endorsements he has going on pay him, it's probably not going to be the same amount as the $50-something million a year he would make once he got his rookie extension, if he ends up being as good as everyone thinks that he's going to be. That is why guys don't stay in college, no matter how good the NIL money is, especially if they're going to be, or potentially going to be, an awesome player. And if you're going to be a first-round pick, then you know that you're going to have every opportunity to be that awesome player, especially if you play quarterback, and sign that whole, the Josh Allen contract where you're making $55 million a year. Okay, like that's why guys leave early. It's not about the rookie contract. It's about the one after that. And the sooner you get to it, the sooner you can re-up on your third contract. It's like that. That is why guys leave, and that's why guys that are going to be like 5th round picks, 6th round picks, 7th round picks. That's why they stay, because first off, their rookie contract isn't going to be that awesome, and secondly, they're probably not getting a really big second contract. So we'll see how that goes. Arch Manning, very excited to see him play on Saturday. Colts roster cuts have been made, and I just, Colts fans are interesting. The love affair with potential and guys who could be good but aren't good. It's kind of crazy. Jelani Woods, when he got cut, I saw a bunch of stuff about how much potential he has and his size and, one game against Kansas City in 2022 and all that kind of stuff. And, Juju Brent, same thing. He got released, and I saw some people like, oh, man, so much potential if he could just stay healthy. And we saw it, of course, with Anthony Richardson. He just needs reps. He's got so much potential if he could just stay healthy. And it's like, look, potential's cool, but potential gets Shane Steichen fired. So sorry if I'm not all about potential like some of these other Indianapolis Colts fans. Or I'm going to talk more about the Jelani Woods and Juju Brent's cuts when we come back in 3 minutes.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, you can also tune in on 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. We had the Power Hour today coming up on the Dan Dockett Show at 2 o'clock. Kent Sterling, Dan Dockett, and your boy right here. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about Colts cuts. So when you hear someone say that a player needs reps, they're really just telling you that that player isn't very good. Because if the player was good, then they wouldn't need reps. And when someone says he has potential, they are telling you that this player is talented, but they can't stay on the field for some reason. Why do Colts fans love these injury-prone players with potential? People were upset yesterday when Jelani Woods got cut. He hasn't played in a game since 2022, his rookie year. And guess what? He wasn't that good. 25 receptions, 312 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 15 games. It's not very good. He only played in 2 games. He couldn't beat out Mo Alley Cox. When Jelani was healthy, he couldn't beat Mo Alley Cox, so why would he beat him out now? And he couldn't beat out, or he was behind Kylan Granson as well, who started more games and played more snaps and all those things. I just, do you know why Jelani Woods has potential? Because he hasn't played. It's the reality of it. 334 career snaps. That is how many plays he has. That's how many snaps he's played in his career. It's hard to have anything more than potential when you have played so little. You know, like my wife is a science teacher, and she teaches kids. I think she does. I don't know if she does. I think she teaches them this. She may not, but she teaches them the difference between potential energy and kinetic energy. And the difference is potential energy is how much energy you could have if you start moving. And the kinetic energy is the energy that you have while you're moving. And players with potential are very simply the guys who have never gotten moving. Jelani Woods falls in that category. Juju Brents has played in 11 of the 34 possible games he could have played in since getting drafted. Potential. Maybe he's going to be good, but he could just never really get going. After he got released yesterday, I saw these comments about how talented he is and that big old P word that we all love. Potential. Oh, he's got potential. Are you noticing something? When someone has potential, it means they're young and talented, but they can't get on the field for some reason. Jelani Woods, Juju Brents, former number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson. They all had so much potential. Translation, they couldn't stay healthy. That's the number 4 overall pick, Anthony Richardson. Look at the draft picks that have been wasted by Chris Ballard. Anthony Richardson. Look, is there a world where Daniel Jones gets hurt, and he's out for 3 weeks, and then Anthony Richardson steps in and he just lights the world on fire? Sure, that could happen, but it's probably not. Second round pick, Jelani Woods. Juju Brents. Third round pick, Jelani Woods. Those are 3 picks that the Colts can't get back. That's not a good look for Chris Ballard. And I'm going to continue to go back to this. It is so important to know who you are and what you're good at and what you're not good at and what you need to outsource to other people and all those things. Chris Ballard is terrible at drafting corners. Of all of the drafting debacles we have seen Chris Ballard have, a lot of them have come at corner. Rock Yassin, Juju Brents, Malik Hooker. I guess he's a safety, but you catch my drift. Since Chris Ballard became the general manager of the Colts, he has drafted 10 cornerbacks in the draft. 3 never played a snap. 5 never played for a full season. One is on IR right now, and he's not going to play at all his rookie year. 1 has appeared in all possible games. 0 have gotten contract extensions. 0 have made a Pro Bowl, and 0 have been an All-Pro. The only corner to appear in every possible game since being drafted is Jalen Jones. The best corner that Chris Ballard has acquired during his time here in Indy was Kenny Moore. Didn't draft him. Okay, he picked him up in free agency. At some point, you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And when you've been doing something for 9 years, like being a general manager, at some point it has to click. And for Chris Ballard, it has not clicked that he is terrible at drafting corners. And that's okay. We can't all be Howie Roseman and just be great at everything. That's just not feasible. Okay, would it be great if we could? Yeah, it would be. But the majority of general managers in the NFL have a hole. Okay, they're not good at drafting this position. Bill Belichick, best head coach in the history of the sport. You know what he was terrible at? Drafting wide receivers. So many misses at wide receiver for Bill Belichick during his time as both the head coach and general manager of the New England Patriots. At some point, you have to say, you know what? I'm not very good at this. So instead of drafting this position, I'm going to let other people draft it and then go get it in free agency. I thought that what Chris Ballard did this year was really smart. Instead of using a first-round pick or a second-round pick on a corner, I know he used a third-round pick, but I don't know. Third-round picks are nice, but if you want good football teams, you have to hit on your first and second-round picks. Instead of doing that, he was like, you know what? Will Johnson is on the board here, but I think instead I'm going to take a tight end and I'm going to go sign Javarius Ward in free agency. We need a safety. Malachi Starks is a really good football player. You could argue he's the best football player in the draft. But I think instead I'm going to go get Cam Bynum. Safety's pretty easy to find in free agency, so we'll just do that instead. Go grab this proven guy. He needs to do that a little bit more often. Because, look, there are things that Chris Ballard is good at. I know that it's not popular to say that right now, but, there are. He's really good at finding offensive linemen. People keep telling me how good this Colts offensive line is. Tanner Bortolini was a 4th-round pick. And he's going to be the Colts starting center, and people are expecting him to be really good. Matt Gonsalves was a 3rd-round pick. He's going to start at right guard. People are expecting him to be pretty good. Bernard Raymond, starting left tackle. Left tackles in the NFL, they're like quarterbacks. If you're not getting them in the first round, don't even bother. Day 2 offensive tackles and day 2 quarterbacks tend to not pan out unless they're drafted by Chris Ballard. Then you go draft Bernard Raymond, and then you give him a 4-year extension worth $100 million that he 1,000% deserves. It's there are things that Chris Ballard is good at drafting, and then there are things that he's terrible at. And I just think that as a person and as a talent evaluator, you have to know what you're good at doing and what you're not. For example, I'm a terrible cook. I'm not good at all. Okay? So I let my wife do a lot of the cooking. With that being said, my wife likes it when I cook because it just makes her day easier. So whenever we plan out our meals for the week and we're eating pasta or quesadillas or tacos or something easy, hamburger helper, whatever it is, something easy, then I try to do it to make her life a little bit easier. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I'm not good at cooking. I'm just not. Never have been. Maybe I will be one day. I don't know. We'll see. I make a mean quesadilla. That's about it. And so you have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And if you're not good at something, you have to use your other resources and the other things around you. Okay? And for Chris Ballard, that is free agency. Go get more corners and secondary players in free agency. Quit wasting draft picks on them. Because if you're a corner and you get drafted by Chris Ballard, just go ahead and know, you're probably going to be a bust. It's the reality of it. It's kind of the way that it seems to go for him. So we'll kind of see how things progress from there. But I don't know. Hopefully we don't have to worry about that anymore next year with Chris Ballard having to pick guys. Hopefully there's some new general manager in the building who is, making these decisions because there's a decent chance that the Colts are going to be looking to draft a new quarterback. And do we really want Chris Ballard making that selection again? I don't. I know that you don't either. But, that's obviously not the only hole on this roster. Defensive tackles for the Colts continue to get older. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. There's no depth behind them. They're going to have to figure that position out here at some point. If Leatu Latu doesn't, pop this year, then you're probably going to have to draft another edge rusher. Do we really want for Chris Ballard to do that? I don't really think so. The cornerback situation should be fine for a little bit, but the linebacker situation is not. I think that's something that they're going to have to figure out here at some point. So I just really hope Chris Ballard is not the one making the calls this next season or next year in terms of who the Colts draft and who they go get in free agency. And then, of course, it's just going to be a long year. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in. No matter how you are tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you watched on X. I greatly appreciate it. You can follow me there at _ Jonathan Smith. And make sure you go download the Indie Sports Ticket app because the Dan Dockett Show is coming your way next. He's on from noon to 3. We got the Power Hour going on today with Kent Sterling. You don't want to miss that. That will start at 2 o'clock. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way next.